If you ever gone fishing for bass or pickerel with something like this, boy, they're a pain to extract from the fish. This has to make a bigger hole than this. But yeah, it takes a couple minutes of lure, and then you got it, right? Not hard to do. Hey, it's Greg here with Outdoors on the Cheap, and I'm just re-rigging up some of these they're not Rapalas, but they're Rapala-like lures. I'm going bass fishing tomorrow with my son, and I bought these, and they've got these 3-prong hooks on them, right? I'll just hold that a bit closer to the camera. Get the two 3-prong hooks. Especially if the fish has got, sharp things on its fins and stuff, right? And especially for a kid, right? They don't want to have to deal with that. It's just a complete liability, right? And also if you're doing, I usually catch fish so I can cook and eat them, but if you're releasing the fish, these 3-prong hooks really mess a fish up. So if you're a catch and release conservation type person, you certainly want to take these things off. So there's 2 ways to go about doing that. One way, as I've done with this one here, just got a little piece of paper so you can see, is to sort of pry and bend and break the, see how I've broken that off, right? Right? That's one way to do it. I personally think that compromises the hook, right? Because these things, they're metal. Metal has memory, and bending bending metal always weakens. For a small bass, I don't think it'd matter, but let's say you hooked into a 3, 4, 5 pounder. You don't want a compromised hook. Also, when you bend them that way, it can change their shape, and they won't have like a proper hook shape for staying hooked up. So the other thing you do is you just replace the existing treble hook with just a single prong hook. And if you're going, like I've done with this one here, right? I don't know why you can see that, but right, just I replaced it with a single prong hook. And when you do that, I usually go with a single prong hook that's actually bigger than the treble hook it came from. I don't know how well you can see that. If I put them side by side on the paper here. But that's a single prong of the original treble hook. And this one here is a single prong of the new hooks I added. I think it's good to go a little bit bigger, maybe 30 to 50% bigger than the initial hook. It'll hook up better. It'll just be more likely to hook up. And it's a bass. It's going to try to put this whole thing in its mouth, and it's a bass, so it can. So it doesn't matter if the hook's a little bit bigger. Right? The reason that each individual prong is small on a treble hook is because otherwise the hook's big, right? The whole thing is big, even though each prong is small. Right? So by contrast, I'm using something like this, right? Over here. Right? A smaller hook, right? Or a bigger prong, even though it's smaller all around, but it's a bigger prong. Another thing you want to do is with these, you want to bend the prong down, okay, with a pair of pliers, right? So the barb, right? This is a barbed hook, right? And I've bent the barb down. Okay, so let me get a pencil and show you why that's a good idea. If you're new to fishing, I never use barbless hooks. I like hooks with a barb that I've bent the barb down, and I find they're the best. Let me explain why. All right, it's a crude, lousy drawing, but hopefully this works for you. So you got a hook with a barb, okay? Right, by contrast, you have a hook with the barb sort of bent down, okay? Barb bent down. Sometimes it snaps off, but usually it bends down. Now, both of these hooks need to penetrate the anatomy of the mouth of the fish. This has to make a bigger hole than this to penetrate. Once this makes a good hole, right, the stress is going to be at this point of the hook, right? Sometimes with the barb left on, it doesn't penetrate the anatomy of the fish, a piece of bone, some sort of plate, some sort of piece of hard cartilage or whatever. And actually, just to redraw here, when you've got a barb on a hook, an actual barb on a hook, it doesn't penetrate any further than here, right? So sometimes you'll have a fish and you're playing it out and all of a sudden the fish comes off, and it's because it didn't continue to penetrate. It stayed. Basically, the fish was just attached just only by the little tip of the hook. It didn't really sink in properly. And sure, some people will say, yeah, but if you set the hook, then the barb sinks in and does its work. That just doesn't always happen. Sometimes you get excited, sometimes you're not paying attention, sometimes you're worried about breaking the line when you set the hook. There's all kinds of reasons you don't actually set the hook. If you're watching a lot of fishing shows, that never seems to be a problem. It's because it's television. All right, when it's just you out in the woods, sometimes you get squirrely about these things, right? So by bending that barb down, you're basically making the hook, in a sense, right? Because you got this big triangle that needs to go through. You're taking a big triangle and turning it into a narrow triangle. Narrow triangles are pointier than big triangles, wide triangles, right? It'll still sink in, and the hook won't fall out because you've still got something there to keep it from coming out. It still has a barb. It's just you've reduced the profile of the barb. So it's pointier, but it's still barby. It's not as barby as this, but it's barby enough to keep the hook from just falling out if you happen to lose tension on the line, which you shouldn't, right? You should always keep your line tight, but that's what you do. All right, now, the trick with doing this, I've found over the years, because it's extremely tedious to do, okay, is don't take this one out and then put the new hook in, okay? What you want to do is, and I don't know how well this is going to show on camera, and I'm sorry if I'll explain what I'm doing, and you can just try it. But what you want to do, okay, is you get the little, I've got this ring here, right? You get the ring started with your fingernail, and you get the eye of the existing treble hook into the ring. Okay, I got it there. I'll bring that up to the camera. See how I've got the eye in the ring? So I've opened it up. I basically I use my fingernail to pry it open, but now I'm using the eye of the treble hook to keep it open. I just pushed that down about a millimeter, like 1/16 of an inch, give or take. Okay, now very carefully, I slide the eye of the new hook behind the treble, all right? Now, as the treble hook sticks into my fingers, I just work it around the ring. Okay? I mean, this is the best way to replace any hook. Don't take the initial hook out. And a lot of things you buy, the initial hooks are no good. And you want to replace them with better hooks. And the best hooks, in my opinion, are ones you buy for fly fishing. Sometimes you can buy them in bulk. They tend to be really sharp and really good quality. Okay, so now I've replaced that, right? That was it. It just falls right off, and you replace it, right? All right, so now I've got my new hook, and I just do I find the back one is easier to do because there isn't as much stuff in the way, right? The middle one's a bit more tedious. You do not want to do this when you're out in the woods getting eaten alive by flies. This is the sort of thing you do like I am right now in my living room in front of the television, watching YouTube, chillaxing with a brew, right? Because you're more relaxed, you're more cool about the whole thing. Oop, I almost lost her there. Yeah, for some reason I find the sort of body one. You also don't want to leave these hooks around, your wife will kill you. Anyway, you get that in there. Come on. Probably easier to do if you don't have big hands. Okay, I got that started. Oh, I can just tell I'm going to lose it. Come on, man. Once you get it going, it's pretty easy to keep it going. I don't know why. That's because of the way I got the hook here. I got to move it around a bit. There we go. I think we got, it's a tedious operation, but I think we got it going here now. Oh, I just hooked myself. You're going to hook yourself a lot when you're doing this. And the more you do it, you start developing you know, the dexterity to do it. I mean, this is one of the things, I might do this once a year, right? And then I don't have to do it for a while. It really depends on what gear you're working with. You're just inching that along. Come on now. There we go, follow that along. There we go. There we go, we got her. All right, so it doesn't take long. I mean, and I'm trying to hold this in front of the camera instead of doing it, you know, in a way that's sort of ideal for me and, you know, my eyes and what I'm looking at, you know. But yeah, it takes, you know, a couple minutes of lore, and then you got it, right? Not hard to do. Anyway, so just a few tips on replacing treble hooks with single prong hooks and bending down the barbs to achieve a better hookup, but still pretty good hookup retention. You know, because you still have a barb, it's just a barb with a lower profile. And when you got it like this, it isn't a complete nightmare trying to get the hook out of a fish that's busy struggling for its life while you've got like 6 treble hooks sunk into it. And also for the welfare of that fish, if you're letting it go, the less holes you put in the fish, the better off fish is going to be. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and until, I got to do this one now, but until next time, enjoy the outdoors on the cheap. Thanks for watching.